Yeah.
Hi everyone. Yeah, sorry I got kicked out there. I'm not sure what happened, but could you see the screen when I shared it?
Yes.
You could, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'll just reshare.
Yeah, we can see it, and I think we can hear you now.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks so much, Saraya, for pulling everything together. It's really great opportunity for us to come and share what we've been doing with digital inclusion, but also to learn from some of the other the names and organisations that are on the schedule as well. So really delighted to be part of it, and thanks again for that. Today I'll be talking to you about the Get Connected 100 project. Marianne, who you've just heard from, was one of the participants in that project. So we connected 100 people experiencing homelessness to the digital world. And just to give you some context, research from the University of the West of Scotland states that people who experience homelessness are the most digitally excluded in the UK. They have the lowest levels of digital skills, device ownership and connectivity, and also often low levels of motivation, trust, and either no or a very small support network as well. So it's there are so many barriers to try and help people experiencing homelessness to get online. So this project is, I'll talk to you a little bit about how we overcame a lot of those barriers, yeah, some of the results from as well as from what you've heard from Marianne, but also some of the results from across the other parts of the project. So we shared we received funding from the Scottish Government to roll out a project, and we decided to roll out the Get Connected 100 project, which launched in March 2021 after a sort of a rapid design and implementation. We wanted to do this as a response to the pandemic after a few pilots and trials in 2020. We worked in partnership with some of the key homelessness services providers in Scotland, Streetwork, Simon Community, Turning Point, Aberdeen Cyrenians, Frontline, Fife, and Seascape and Cath. So it was a truly national project and really kind of brought in that spirit of collaboration from across the third sector. The model that we used was device, data, support and framework. So I'll just quickly jump into each of those key areas and give you an overview of some of the key information. So in terms of the device, we gave the people in the project a choice of a smartphone or a tablet. 41% of people chose to go with the smartphone. Reasons for that are that they can use the calls and texts that come with the unlimited the unlimited SIM card, which I'll touch on later, but also that it's portable and easy to use, and people wanted just maybe a smaller device. But the reasons that 59% of people went with the tablet was generally screen size and wanting to watch videos. There was also some people wanted to do employment preparation or maybe already had a phone, or it was maybe that they wanted to use it with their child and it was a bit more versatile. For the data, we set up an unlimited SIM card with calls, texts and data, and this was a really critical part, as Marianne touched on in her clip there. We didn't want people to worry about running out of connectivity. People shouldn't have to choose between contacting their family when they're lonely and isolated and contacting their doctor when they're sick. We want people to have the choice and flexibility to use all aspects of the digital world whenever they need it. So even with like data allowances of 5 or 10 gigabytes, with people using Netflix or YouTube, you can blast through that much data in a weekend and then they'd be digitally excluded again. So we're really keen to help people to have access to unlimited connectivity. In terms of the support, we found that the pre-existing relationship between the frontline worker is absolutely critical to the successful delivery of digital inclusion. The support that provision fosters trust and confidence and sort of a rapport between the person they're supporting. And this makes frontline staff the ideal people to nurture those digital skills and that learning in a person-centered way. But we actually trained all of our staff as digital champions. So we got the staff to set up Google accounts for the people we support. This gave them access to Gmail, and all of the G Suite tools, so Docs and Drive and Meet, and also gives them access to the Play Store as well, so they can download lots of other apps, and they have an email address to log into other accounts such as social media accounts. So getting an email address is really critical. But then we also set up the device and got the SIM card registered and handed over the device. But then we also trained all of the staff in digital inclusion as well, which I'll just touch on in a moment. So the final point is the frameworks. We developed a learning framework of digital skills called the Quick Wins framework, and this was designed to get people up and running with digital straight away. So looking at what are the most useful and relevant apps, websites and tools to help people in their current situation. And this was a guide for staff members to go through that with the person while they have the phone. So they can choose, some tools that they may not be familiar with as well, and potentially find out what might be available that they might not have been aware of. The Quick Wins focused on 4 key areas, which was communication, so emails, messaging, video calls, finding reliable information, so from sources such as the NHS or the government or reliable news websites, managing finances, so online banking, PayPal, managing benefits, and finally entertainment, leisure and learning. So that's things like streaming videos, online reading, podcasts, gaming. So the reason we chose these 4 categories is that if we felt that we could help people to stay in touch, stay safe and be informed, access their money and live within their means, and enjoy their spare use of time and increase their well-being, this would definitely improve quality of life, especially in the context of a pandemic. So we handed over the devices on the 1st of March last year, and they were handed over by the digital champions and set up and passed on to the person. And the digital champions continued to support that person to use the device on a daily, sometimes, or weekly basis, so that they could get the most out of the device. And 6 weeks later, we followed up with an evaluation process. The evaluation process had 2 parts to it. One was that everybody who participated, staff and service users, completed a survey or a questionnaire, and we also conducted interviews with around 30% of all the participants as well. So the findings from this evaluation process, we wrote up the Get Connected 100 report, which is available on the Simon Community website, but I'll just go through some of the highlights of the impact from the project. In the evaluation, we asked lots of questions, and here are some of the results. So 92% of people felt inspired to learn more, 91% of people felt more confident with digital, 94% said they would continue to use digital, 92% placed more value on connecting to the internet, 91% of people increased use of digital tools, 98% of people found their digital champion support helpful, and 96% of people in the project said that it positively affected their lives. If we also look at what the digital champions said, they said that people's engagement in support increased in 85% of cases, and the digital champions said that the lives of the people they support were improved, and that was across the board, 100% of people. So as an overview, this shows like an overwhelmingly positive experiences for people in the project. And if you think that it's such a relatively low amount of money to invest to help people to get online, it really does feel like a bit of a game changer in terms of helping people to recover from homelessness. So how did people use the devices? People were using the devices to communicate. 96% of people, 88% of people felt more connected. 85% of digital champions said that there were people had increased their engagement and support. And some of the key themes from all of those interviews was basically connecting with friends and family and support networks. It was absolutely critical. We have hundreds of reflections from across the board from service users through the evaluation process. But the 2 examples on the screen just show that it was really connecting with friends and family, and they are such easy, quick wins. It's just installing a messaging app and suddenly they're connected. Finding reliable information, 92% of people feel more informed, with 70% of people accessing government updates and news, and 52% of people accessing health information, again within the context of the pandemic. They're really, really important statistics. The key themes, again, was just having access to information, people being able to find out whatever they want, whenever they need it. COVID updates, access to homelessness services, weather apps, bus tracking apps, or stuff around hobbies and interests. In terms of financial or money matters, 53% of people felt more in control of their finances, and 53% of people were able to buy things online. You will notice that those statistics are slightly lower. I think that's for a number of reasons. Basically, there are a lot greater barriers to opening bank accounts than there are to downloading WhatsApp. But to get over half of the people in the project able to start using a device to manage their finances really felt like a quick win. And we're now developing partnerships with some of the key banks in Scotland to help us increase those statistics. The key themes, again, was that people just felt more in control and could budget and manage their lives better. And in terms of entertainment, 96% of people accessed online entertainment, with streaming videos, online gaming, and audio streaming featuring quite highly on people's lists. But this is so much more than just watching YouTube or playing games. People were learning musical instruments, people were learning languages, or joining meditation groups and other online communities. So it was a real varied mix of what people were using the device for. And what came through really strongly is that when doing that, it's a great distraction from falling into perhaps other more destructive behaviours, which we've seen in our services, especially in reducing drug use and promoting harm reduction. It stopped people from perhaps doing other things with their time. And the one thing that actually Marianne had said, which wasn't by design, but did say in her clip, was that it's been a lifeline to her. And this is the phrase that we heard over and over again across the project. So I think I think when you really get your head around that this is a lifeline for people, it makes you realise how critical it is in people's journey out of homelessness. So just to touch on that quickly before I finish, people experiencing homelessness are the most excluded and marginalised groups in the country, and inclusion is a key aspect of the work that we do right across the homelessness sector. And we're focused around digital inclusion, but there's all kinds of other inclusion agendas, such as social, health, financial, democratic, educational, inclusion in public services, and cultural inclusion. But through this project, what we realized is that digital inclusion isn't just another type of inclusion, it's a pathway for all of the types of inclusion around the board. So that's the catalyst to allow people to access other inclusion agendas. So when people have digitally included, they can contact their friends, they can access the National Health Service, they can open a bank or buy things online and get the best deals, they can register to vote or other types of civic participation, they can sign up to college or other online courses, they can access public services, and they can be culturally included in part of society. So when people are digitally excluded, they miss out on all of those aspects of life. And if we think about how disadvantaged we would be if we weren't able to access the internet and get online, whether we wouldn't be able to contact friends or do our jobs or join conferences here again in this situation, or buy things online, it just shows you how critical and how embedded digital is in our lives. And that if we want to, for the vast majority of people experiencing homelessness, this is the unfortunate reality that they can't do that, but we can change this picture. Our evidence shows that the Get Connected model enables people to make meaningful change in their life. And yeah, it really does feel like a game changer. For people who have complex needs, digital inclusion doesn't just include people in digital, it includes people in society. And I'm pleased to say that we've actually received recent funding from the Scottish Government and Good Things Foundation to expand on this programme. So we're now going to be rolling out Get Connected 500 to connect 500 more people with devices and data and digital champion support. And this actually ties in really nicely with street support. As at Simon Community, we're also being really heavily involved in rolling out street support in Edinburgh and Glasgow. But it means that we can pre-install the street support app onto the person's device and show them how to use the app as well. So that's going to give them access to all of the information and services that they need. That's it from me. Yeah, just if you want to get in touch, please do feel free. But I also just want to highlight that Nigel, who's also on this call, is going to be taking Get Connected 500 forward. He's our new digital inclusion manager. He started, it was his first day in the role yesterday, but his details are there if you, for networking purposes, if anybody wanted to get in touch.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jamie. Something that you said really stood out to me. Digital inclusion is a pathway to other types of inclusion. And I don't think I had made that connection before, but it's obvious, you know, when you said it in that way. So yeah, that's a great, that's a great strap line, to be honest. Digital inclusion is a pathway to other types of inclusion. It's a big one. So yeah, we've got 10 minutes for questions. Does anyone have any questions for Jamie that they'd like to ask? If you want to raise your hand. Like, oh, Julie?
Oh,
yep,
if I may. Thanks
yes.
very much. Jamie, one of the things I'm interested in is how we assess individual needs around digital inclusion, how we identify people's individual barriers. And I just wondered how you assessed where people were at the beginning in order to work out how best to meet their individual needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what people need in terms of equipment or connectivity, that's just a case of work. Like we train digital champions right across all of the frontline homelessness services in Scotland who have that pre-existing relationship with the person they're supporting. So I'm sure in the organisations you work with there, I don't know what you would call them, but there's going to be the person who engages at the front line. They will be the best person to assess that situation. So if somebody needs a device or needs connectivity, we obviously provide that. In terms of where they're at in their skills journey and their abilities, we've actually been down a couple of routes with that. We initially did like a digital skills assessment to try and see where people are at in their journey. What we found with that is that while skills are really important, the other barriers are often just as important. So when we have the quick wins framework of digital skills, we get our digital champions to go through people and explain what all of the most relevant and useful tools are that would be available. And we actually did a big consultation process with staff and volunteers and people who use our services to find out what those skills and tools are. So it's all service user informed. And then our digital champions will go through the people with those tools and find out where they're at. I mean, some people can't turn on a device, and then it's up to the digital champion to actually show people how to turn on a device, how to connect to a Wi-Fi, how to use a password, how to use the basic accessibility settings. So obviously people are at totally different parts of that journey, but we just get the digital champions to do a full training session to cover all of those areas so that when they engage with people, they can kind of help them to first of all to get online if that's where they're at in their journey, but secondly to understand all of the tools and teach them how to use them.
Great, thank you, Jamie. David Sutherland has a question, so go for it, David.
We had quite a lot of devices donated to us during that period from a great number of sources. Probably about 50 for a relatively small area that was Bury in Lancashire. We had horrendous difficulties with people retaining the devices. What was your experience?
Sorry, David, can you just repeat that? With people wanting the devices?
No, well, people wanting devices, then they were either being lost, pawned, or stolen. So our device retention rate was very poor.
Right, okay.
Oh, yes, there was a need for it, massive need for it, but for people to actually keep the devices was so difficult.
Yeah, I mean, our experience was a bit different to that. I think after the first 3 months of our pilot, we had 36 devices went out, and I think 35 of them people still had. I think one person had left it on a bus, but I realized that might not be typical across the board. I think, and this is just my opinion from our experience in our project, is that there's something around the psychological change in people starting to value digital connection and that when people value digital connection and realize all of the benefits that it can bring to people, which is once they realize that that is much greater than, say, the second-hand resale price of, say, £40 for a phone, or from pawning a phone, once they realize everything that it does bring, then they no longer want to sell a phone. So it's about trying to really increase the value of digital. And I think if you give people a device and data and build support into that and show people how to use it, and they can instantly start to get those quick wins of, oh, I can message my family, oh, I can manage my benefits, and, you know, I can watch football highlights or listen to music or whatever it is. Once you build all of the great things around digital that we all appreciate, and people start to realize that benefit, then that's when people will start to want to keep hold of it themselves. That's from our experience.
So was that, so in terms, so was it through the support workers who would refer somebody in? So there was that potentially relatively long-term relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So the way I'm not like the structure in our organization is that we have the services, that homelessness services that we operate, staff work with people and develop a relationship over a long period of time. And in fact, the digital device really helped to foster that relationship as well, because it gives them something positive to work towards. But yeah, I really think the relationship is absolutely key. If you just if you throw a device and data at someone with no support and no relationship, I'm not surprised that people would pawn them. I think it's about the support that's put around that. That's really important.
Thanks, Jamie. I think, yeah, some of it was because we were asked by probation or council to do it without the chance of that. And some of the people, for various reasons, found it difficult too.
Yeah.
People, for historical reasons. I can understand that, but thanks very much.
Yeah,
that's a project that worked well. Really, it's really encouraging for the future.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David. We've got two more people that want to ask questions. Gary's one of them. Gary, go for it.
There was a question in the chat from Paul saying, I noticed the test areas are mostly urban. Are there any examples of more rural projects where the internet coverage is even more dodgy?
Absolutely. We had real problems in, we work in Perth with Turning Point Perth and with Cath, and I would say about 50% of the people that we support were outside of the centre of Perth and in more rural areas. And I'm afraid I don't have a quick answer for you other than providing like drop-in centres or giving people access to different types of SIM cards, so like an O2 or a Vodafone, and just testing. There is a coverage checker that you can do online, where if you type your postcode in, you'll find out which services have the best coverage. So, you know, we found that O2 generally was the best across the country, so we went with that. But yeah, we definitely had people that really struggled to get connectivity, and then it's a major barrier for people in rural areas. I know that there's kind of plans from the Scottish Government to kind of really develop the network and the infrastructure around that, but it's I feel your pain, Paul. That's a really difficult question to overcome. Other than trying to find the best possible SIM card out there, or looking at potential shared spaces where there's available Wi-Fi. It's a really tricky one, but I'm sure other people might have some other ideas around that as well.